because now we have in our possession, in the last few moments, a statement which we requested this morning from Everton, just to put a bit of clarity on the situation. We understand that Everton are set to improve separately. We understand that Everton are set to improve security procedures and protocols for the match against Arsenal next month. Now, of course, this comes after board members of Everton Football Club were advised not to attend Saturday's 2-1 defeat by Southampton amid, quotes, real and credible threats which had been gathered by the club. Now, they didn't attend the match. They chose not to attend the match. The match came and went. There was a post-match protest by some of the Everton fans, and that came after the latest defeat. They lost by 2-1 to Southampton. In a statement, Merseyside police have said that Everton did not report any of the threats and allegations of physical violence, which prompted the safety advice for the board to stay away. The club alleged that Bill Kenwright had been subjected to verbal threats of violence at a recent game. And Denise Barrett Baxendale's car, she is the chief executive, her car was spat at, and that she was surrounded by supporters as she and her family attempted to leave the stadium after the recent 4-1 defeat by Brighton and Hove Albion. I'm looking at the statement. You've got it as well, Simon. I don't know that it tells us anything very much that you and I could consider as new. Everton's game with Southampton was made high risk following consultation, they say, with Merseyside police. That's an order, right?
Yeah.
Following further discussions with the police,
I don't know.
The club can confirm that Everton's next fixture at Goodison will also be categorised as high risk.
Yeah.
The club will not be making any comment related to specific historic incidents. The health and safety and security of our fans, staff and players is and always will remain our top priority.
I mean, there's a degree of implausibility about all of it. Because whilst
what do you mean?
Well, I'm uncomfortable with the nature of football club directors being forced into a situation where they don't attend a football match, and that the level of threat was so real and credible that it put them in that invidious position. No one should go to a football match and receive a level of abuse which is beyond an acceptable amount. Right? And I'm quite a resilient character. So I read this and I look at it and go, there's no parallel universe. I don't care what you told me that I wouldn't be going to a football ground that I'm a director of. And I would, if the threat was credible, well, I would take the prerequisite steps to be able to insulate myself, whether that was getting to the ground early, ensuring that there were stewards in a position to make sure no one could get and cause any physical harm to me, at the same time as keeping me in the stadium after the game, if the threat was real and credible.
If you'd received threats, though, that got to you a bit, would you immediately report it to the police?
Well, I find it implausible that you've got a game that's got all of the dynamics of this centred around it, an unhappy fan base, a high risk association from the police, that this discussion hasn't happened in a safety meeting between the intelligence gathered. And I'd like to know what intelligence Everton have available to them that the police wouldn't have had available to them, because part of a consultation for a game is dialogue with the police leading up to the fixture, which ascertains when trains are coming in, what the level of attendance is going to be, what the attitude of the home fans is, what's the likelihood involvement of away fans. All of those are discussed by the safety officer, the stadium manager, the police, and everything that goes with it. So I find it slightly implausible that the police wouldn't be party to a conversation that involved real and credible threats to the directors of Everton. Now, alongside that, would I have made it, in my view, and I'm looking back at myself, and it's easy to sit in the cheap seats and make these observations, but I have been in similar situations, albeit at the away club, and I don't look at this and say I would want to set a precedent of stepping down and stepping back and allowing a situation to manifest itself. Now, I understand that the background noise is that this is about deflection. This is a typical Bill Kenwright ploy that takes it away from the situation of their culpability for the mess that Everton are in and turn them into victims.
So what, you're saying that's an allegation of some fans?
Well, I'm saying that's what Everton fans are saying, aren't they? They're saying this is a typical situation which is being Machiavellian and orchestrated by those. Well, look, it's a conspiracy that people will have to put together, and somewhere along the line, the credibility and realness of these threats are going to have to come to the surface and suggest why they're so real, why they're so credible, how this information was gained, why the police wouldn't have been involved in the discussion in the first place, because the whole perimeter and the whole responsibility of policing is to ensure that there's safety inside the football stadiums. So I find it implausible that the police weren't aware of this. Now, whether they communicated that up the line into a situation where an allegation was made for the police to be involved, or whether it was an observation made in a security meeting, I do find it implausible the police don't know about this. I then look at it and say, OK, what information? Because we don't know. All we've been told, I don't know why Everton want to be so ambiguous. I don't know why they've made this position that it's so important that the directors have been instructed. Well, first and foremost, whoever they engage to provide them information doesn't give them a position to instruct. It gives them a position to advise. If somebody works for me, they don't instruct me what to do. They advise me on what my best choices may be. So the language is slightly curious, but this real and credible threat, I would, if I was going to go this route and put this in the public domain, I would want to establish what that real and credible threat actually was, and I'd want people to know what it was. I personally wouldn't handle it this way. I personally would have gone to the football match, ensured that if there was a prerequisite amount of security required to negate or to neutralise any real and credible threat, that it was there. And I also think that Mashiri should be involved in the process. If
you think he should be there?
Well, if Bill Kenwright's not very well and doesn't want to be put in a confrontational position, I can understand that to some extent. And it's all about Bill, this is. And people think because I like Bill that somehow I've got some reason to deflect away from the situation of the culpability of Everton's board for the bad decisions that are putting their football club in the bottom tier and the bottom three of the Premier League.
So you'd be saying because enhanced security procedures and protocols are in place, right,
but why would you step down? I mean, people will say, and I understand why they would say it, and maybe my character is a confrontationalist. There's not a parallel universe where anybody would stop me from going to a football club that I was seriously invested in, specifically as the owner, because some people were upset with me. I would want to be there because it was my responsibility to lead, to illustrate the fact that I'm indexed to the problems that I'm in part culpable for creating, and I'm not going to be browbeaten down by mob rule. I'm not going to allow it to happen. And you can bark at me as much as you want, but I'm not going to allow that to happen. Now, you've now made a rod for your own back, because those that think that if there are legitimate threats being made, if we're to take it at face value and not to suggest that everyone at Everton is weaving together some awful conspiracy theory, then you've just given them more power to their elbow.
Well, exactly. How long did they stay away now? The last game against Southampton, high risk, stay away. They stayed away. I mean, the next one against Arsenal at Goodison, high risk, stay away. They'll probably stay away. You say you wouldn't. You'd be taking your seat.
We are talking about the ridiculousness of someone having to go to a football stadium in spite of potential danger. I mean, we do have to get some bleeding context here. This is a football club that people love and cherish, but you don't have any business with any kind of threat to the owners of the football club. So we are talking about context here, and maybe my gung-ho mentality isn't for everybody, but there is no way I, as an owner of a football club, would want this to be on my toes and allow people to do this to me. And if I was going to go into the media, and if I was going to make this a media story, I would damn sure make sure the media got every last instance of why this was a real and credible threat. If I was going to go that route, which I probably wouldn't, what I'll do is I'd go there and get on with it and see and I'd understand from the intelligence that I've allegedly got what my threat was, and I would take the prerequisite amount of appropriate steps to negate that threat.
And you would hopefully witness your club that you've invested so heavily in win the football match. Adam's an Evertonian who's been listening very closely. Adam, good morning. What do you want to say?
Good morning, gents. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.
It is about context, and the context is the Everton fans have been vilified throughout this whole debacle. And we've been vilified by the board, we've been vilified by the club, we've been vilified by the media, and it's now coming out that these accusations are unproven. There are statements being delivered to the media from anonymous sources who are, quote, afraid for their safety. There are incidents that are happening at the club which no Everton fan would tolerate if they were true. But the incidents aren't reported to the authorities, and the club wait 10 days just before the Everton fans are planning a peaceful protest to mention that and to feed that information out to the media, which then gets reported.
I'm looking at the statement that we've just received, Adam, and the final paragraph. The club would like to thank the vast majority of supporters who've behaved impeccably before, during and after the game with Southampton, as they have done throughout the season. So there's no vilification there. It would seem that if there has been abuse, it's been a tiny section of the Evertonian support that has been indulging in it, if it has been the case.
When Farah Bashiri came on the show last week, and I listened to the interview with great interest, he vilified the Everton fans. He made claims of of putting his money where his mouth is. And
No, Adam, I'm not going to allow you to have a free run at that, mate, because that's not what anyone's done. I'm a huge admirer of your football club. I have a great affection for it. But I watched your fans run on a pitch last year and clonk my manager in the face of Crystal Palace. So with due respect, let's get some context. No one's vilifying the fans. Whoever, if they exist, have made these credible threats, then those are the people that are being vilified. And I did not hear Moshiri. I thought it was naive mutterings and utterings about how you're all aligned together, because you're clearly not. But he did not, at no point, and nobody in the media is vilifying Everton fans en masse. In fact, people are being very careful to suggest that Everton fans en masse are brilliant fans, but there's a section of the fan base that aren't. And I don't think that's unfair. And you're taking it from one extreme to the other to try and make a point, but that's not what anyone's doing.
What would you say to that, Adam?
The point that I'm making is that, you know, the people are saying that we should direct our attentions towards supporting the team. Well, you know, we're doing that. We met the coach before the game, and when we did that last year, it was reported that was a good thing. That was a positive thing. We were trying to help the players, but when we did it before this match, it was an aggressive situation. It was a combative environment. The messages that are coming out are completely different. No Everton fan is condoning any sort of violence. No Everton fan is condoning, you know, spitting on someone's car or
no one's saying you are, Adam. But you're the one that's suggesting that everyone is saying that you are. No one said that you are. We're trying to get to the bottom of what people would do, what the directors should have done. I think they should have gone to the game and ignored it. If there is credible and real threats, I think they should reveal what they are when they manifest themselves. If they haven't told the police in a safety meeting, which is before a game and is standard process to avail the police of any information, I'd like to know why that is, so we can top and tail this properly.
Yes, yeah.
But what I also think you should do is accept the fact that you've got an owner, not bald. Bill Kenwright might have some influence, but Fahid Moshiri isn't going to let anyone spend his money without him having the final say. Your ire and your irritation should be at Fahid, but ultimately, what's your solution? Barking at the moon? How's that going to help anybody?
Well, that's it. Adam, here's the bottom line question. Is it your belief, your view, that the board should have been at that Southampton match at the weekend? Is it your view they should attend the next home match?
Where does it end? If you don't attend one match, you know, what's the route back in from there? You know, are those safety concerns that the club keep talking about going to go away? Are the people going to feel less threatened? If you miss a home game, like you said before, you're going to miss the next game because the fans are still going to protest. There's still going to be that anger towards the board and towards the chairman. So what is the way back? You know, what's the end game for the board now? Do they just never come back to the home games? I mean, we haven't seen Moshiri since July 21 anyway. So
which isn't good enough, by the way. Are you in the camp, Adam? Are you in the camp, sorry, mate, that this is some Machiavellian plot cooked up by the Everton directors to be able to deflect away from the shortcomings of their position and make them the victims of a scenario? Do you believe that to be the case?
Yes,
you do.
As do 99% of Everton fans. It's all about convenience. It's about the times that these incidents are mentioned. It's about the information that's being drip fed in tiny amounts to news outlets, to local reporters, and it's like you say. There's no clarification from the club. Why come out and make a statement? One of 3 or 4 statements in the last week that have said basically nothing and everything in the same the same A4 sheet. There's no proof being listed. There's no clarification with Merseyside Police. There's no information about investigations. There's no everything that's been mentioned by the club is just within a small part of the
Okay,
club.
Adam, listen, we appreciate your time and we appreciate your call. We're going to try and keep as closely across this as we can.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.